They talked to us about inequity within and across neighborhoods that inhibit people from advancing. They talked about inequities in parks and recreation, pollutants in the community, that some things that you'll find in the Bronx or in Brooklyn that you don't see in more affluent communities. Again, like, not even having sidewalks where you can run, your children can walk and to and from school, having abandoned lots that bring about rodents and infestation of rodents. So inequities in neighborhoods and how neighborhoods are structured and supported. They talked a lot about the marginalization and the overcriminalization of BIPOC persons in communities, how Black and Brown communities are over surveilled, where the arrest rates are higher because of over surveillance, how the incarceration rates are higher, how these communities are deprived of basic resources, basic local economies, such that people can't find jobs in their communities, Black and Brown communities, but have to leave their communities and go into predominantly white communities. And then what results is that the dollars that they make don't stay in their communities because you don't have businesses. You can't get fresh fruits and vegetables in certain communities, so you have to go to the more affluent white communities to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. You can't find a good, dry cleaners in a Black and Brown community, so you have to go to a white community. And how that then serves to continually deprive and oppress these communities and keep the people from within them getting ahead. They talked about inequity in representation and decision making, how decisions that are made for communities and for people of color often don't have people of color sitting at the table when they're being made, how decisions are made about what's going to be cited in a Black and Brown community concerning a shelter for persons who at the time are homeless, or more increasingly talks about citing of jails, citing of industries, like I said before, that contribute to climate warming, global warming. Black and Brown people don't really have a say in what comes into their communities. And lastly, they talked about the lack of enforcement and accountability of government when it comes to bringing about greater opportunity, when it comes to dismantling these systems that allow for inequity. And so we're taking these 6 categories and using them as the kind of the foundation upon which to build new laws, new provisions to tackle these problems.
If you had to say what your top 3 priorities would be to go forward in this process, what would they be?
Work needs to be done to center on uh, how we define poverty. We look at people and we define poverty as being who's deprived of the basic resources, incomes that they need, basic resources that they need based on income, but we don't look at what it truly costs to live in New York City, and so therefore we use measures that are outdated, and we use them then to continually suppress wages, especially for persons of color, and keep persons of color from accessing the resources that they really need. If we undercount poverty and what it truly costs to live, then we're going to undercount what is needed to get ahead. We're going to undercount wages, what we need in order to make, what income we need to get ahead. We're going to undercount the income supports that are needed. And what that results then is people living their entire lives in a deprived state. So I think we need to focus on that. We need to focus on the continued marginalization and oppression of people through structures like incarceration, and how we further criminalize people who are poor, and we put them into systems, including incarceration, foster care, and the like, and then they are further marginalized by that. And then I think we need to look, I guess a third area that we need to focus on is the issue of, fair share and fair care, and what is cited in communities and what is not there that keeps communities from getting ahead.
How do we, and I've asked this question, I'm always asking this question, how do we create a listening? Because, you've got these parents all over the country and right here in boroughs of New York City not wanting to do, when it comes to critical race theory, they feel that you're throwing it at them, that it's being thrust upon them, and that that there's no reason for it to be discussed in schools, and we just want to turn a blind eye to it. It doesn't exist now. How do we penetrate that kind of thinking? Because once we're able to do that, I think we can move the dial on this. But until we can get people to create some sort of a listening, but it's going to be on us. That's the hard part.
Right.
It's
So,
and I'm almost mad about that. Why should that have to be on us? But it's going to be on us.
So you know what I'm reminded of, that line, that adage, you can, what is it? You can please some of the people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you cannot please all of the people all of the time. And I think with this work, we have to understand and appreciate we're not going to change everybody's minds. We have to go back and look at the civil rights movement as a great example of this. Not everybody's minds were changed, but there were some whose minds had to be changed, and we need to center on those people. One of the things that I am so excited about is that, we're looking at a government structure right now, and we're trying to look at and address changes in the foundational laws. Not everybody's going to come along, but first and foremost, we have to educate willing minds. I say about critical race theory all the time, the reason why it's so polarizing is not because the people who are against it are even debating it on the merits. They are more concerned about it being a disempowering tool. That's it in a nutshell. If you teach critical race theory to everybody, then what you're going to tell the little Black girl, the little Black boy, you're going to help them to appreciate. You're going to give them an empowering tool. They're going to appreciate that it's not that they're less than. It's not that they're less capable. It's not that their parents were less capable. Rather, it was that the system was designed to keep them and their ancestors from getting ahead. And now we're dismantling that system. What it tells the little white child is, oh my goodness, you're not as smart as we told you were. You're not smarter. You're not more capable. You're not more able. You just got a head start. And what that does is that makes people nervous because, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to the little white child's sense of self and her confidence? Because now we're going to rock her world and let her know, no, sweetheart, it's not that you're better than. That's what the biggest fear is when it comes to critical race theory, because when you start changing minds and the oppressed become enlightened and the oppressor becomes further enlightened about this system, it starts to mess with the mind. And those who've been disenfranchised think they can. And those who've been long empowered and over-empowered begin to think maybe not.
And I'm thinking, why is it called theory? Why is it a theory? Meaning, this isn't a theory. This is lived. This is real. This is empirical. Right. So why is it called theory?
I think it's called theory. Well, first of all, let's remember that it was created by academics. And so they put out a hypothesis. And hypotheses, I was a chemistry major in college, have to be continually tested. And what critical race theory essentially is saying is that we have these foundational laws upon which our society was structured that have embedded racism in our society. And so what it's saying is we have to continually examine the laws, the structures, and how they're rooted in this racism. So theory is like you're constantly looking, you're constantly challenging. Come on, Maria, help me as the
academic. It should be critical
it's an inquiry.
It's actually a framework, right, for analysis and to kind of plug all this stuff into. And so, and theory was the term that was used in the 70s and 80s when this was really developed.
Because, calling it a theory to a layperson like me that may not be in academic circles means there's a question about whether it's real or not. And this is real. This is lived. So
well, remember, Einstein had theories too that were proven, right? And so but the beauty of this is that when you think about it in theory, it's like you can then get to continually test it and examine it. So, like I'm doing it a lot right now with a lot of the policies that, that by design appear to address, racism, but in fact, they really don't. And so, if you're continually examining these issues, it allows you to unpack them.
Go ahead, Phyllis, because you haven't spoken.
Well, Jennifer, as you've been doing this work, what is the thing that has shown up for you that has been maybe most revealing or most surprising to you? I know you've done a lot of this work, but I know that as we continue to delve, we find out things that we didn't know before. So is there something you could share with us that was particularly?
So positively surprising, the depth of understanding of racism on the part of persons who've lived it. Understanding that it's not like, people coming forth and saying, like the wool was pulled over my eyes, but I get it now, and I'm going to speak up and I'm going to speak out about it. So that's been positively surprising, and I guess like kind of reassuring and reinforcing the importance of the work. The most alarming thing has been when we try to unpack an issue and figure out a solution that dismantles structural racism, to hear people say, well, the law doesn't allow for that. We can't do it because the law says we can't do it. And it's like, duh, we're trying to correct the laws.
So with that, this was so good. I could barely hang up. I could barely call this to a close, but thank you so much, Jennifer, for the work that you're doing. And thank you to all of the Savvy Panelistas for your interest, your passion, and your engagement in making the kind of systemic change that we want to see. And we will see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.